First story. The Hollow Eyes of Blackwood. I never should have gone into Blackwood Forest. It started as a simple camping trip. Me, my brother Josh, and our friends Ethan and Cole. We'd grown up in Maple Hollow, a small town where nothing much happened, and we were looking for something exciting. Everyone in town knew the stories about Blackwood. People went missing there. Strange sounds echoed through the trees at night. But we were young, reckless, and thought we were invincible. We set up camp near the river, close enough to hear the water rushing over rocks. The fire crackled as we sat in a circle, telling jokes and daring each other to stay up all night. "Ever hear about the Hollow One?" Ethan asked, grinning. Cole rolled his eyes. "The thing with no eyes? Yeah. It's just a stupid ghost story." "Not just a story," Ethan said, lowering his voice. "People say it can mimic voices. It lures you into the woods, and once you see its face, you never come back." Josh scoffed. "That's ridiculous." But even as he said it, the trees seemed to close in around us. The night felt heavier. The wind carried whispers that weren't there before. Then we heard it, Josh. A soft voice, barely more than a breath, but unmistakable. Josh's face went pale. "Did you hear that?" Ethan forced a chuckle. "Probably just the wind." Then it came again. "Josh, help me." It wasn't just any voice. It was our mother's voice. Josh shot to his feet so fast he knocked over his beer. "That's not funny," he muttered. "Who the hell?" I grabbed his arm. "Josh, sit down." But he wasn't listening. He was already walking toward the trees. Then Cole screamed. I turned, and I saw it. Just beyond the fire's glow, something stood in the shadows. Too tall, too thin. Its limbs were wrong, elongated, shifting as if they had too many joints, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. The worst part was its eyes, or rather the absence of them. Two hollow voids stared at us, swallowing the firelight. It opened its mouth, and my mother's voice came out. "Josh, come here." Josh stopped dead. He was shaking. The thing twitched. Then it moved. Fast. The fire barely illuminated it before it was on Josh. He gasped, a strangled sound, as something long and thin wrapped around his throat. I lunged, but Ethan yanked me back. "No," he hissed. Josh's scream was cut short. Then he was gone. The fire flared as if something had passed over it. The thing had vanished. So had Josh. Only silence remained. We ran. Branches tore at our skin. The darkness felt alive, shifting, watching. But then, streetlights, the faint glow of town. We burst onto the road, gasping. A car skidded to a stop, the driver staring at us like we were ghosts. We told the police everything. They searched the woods for days. No sign of Josh, no footprints, no evidence, nothing. But that night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I heard it again. A whisper, right outside my window. "Caleb, help me." Josh's voice. And then I saw them. Two black hollow eyes staring at me through the glass. Second story. The Echoes of Wyndham. I had never believed in the stories about Wyndham Forest. The tales of people vanishing, the whispers of something lurking between the trees. Just small town nonsense. But when my friends and I decided to camp there one weekend, I learned the truth the hard way. We arrived at the edge of the forest just before sunset. The town of Wyndham was only a few miles behind us, but as soon as we stepped into the trees, the world outside felt like a distant memory. The air was thick, the scent of damp earth clinging to everything. Carter, my best friend, laughed as he slapped me on the back. "Come on, Ethan, don't tell me you're actually scared." "Just cautious," I muttered, adjusting my backpack. We set up camp in a small clearing, the fire flickering against the darkness. Sarah and Mia were talking about an old legend they'd read online. "They say something lives out here," Mia whispered, eyes wide. "Something that mimics voices, luring people away." "Bullshit," Carter scoffed. "Probably just echoes." That night, I woke up to a sound. At first, I thought it was the wind, but then I heard it, my mother's voice. Ethan, help me." I shot up, my heart hammering. My mother was miles away back in Boston. "There was no way, Ethan? Please." The voice came from the trees. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped away from the camp, my breath shallow. The others were still asleep. The deeper I went, the louder the voice became, twisting into something unnatural. It was no longer my mother. It was something else, something that knew me. A branch snapped behind me. I turned, shining my light into the trees. For a moment, I saw nothing. And then, it stepped forward. It was tall, too tall, its limbs long and jagged like broken branches. Its face was wrong, shifting, flickering between familiar features. My mother, Carter, Mia, and then My own face stared back at me. I couldn't move. The thing tilted its head, and a sound came from its throat, like my own voice, distorted. "Help me." A hand clamped over my mouth. I nearly screamed before realizing it was Sarah. She shook her head, her eyes filled with terror. "Don't speak. Don't look at it. Just run." We sprinted back to the camp, but Carter and Mia were gone. The fire was out, their sleeping bags shredded. The creature's whispering voice surrounded us, growing louder, more desperate. "Stay. Don't leave. I need you." We ran. The trees blurred around us, the path twisting in ways it shouldn't. My lungs burned, Sarah's hand gripping mine. The voice changed again, becoming Carter's. "Ethan, please, don't leave me here." I turned, just for a second. Carter was standing at the edge of the trees, his face pale, eyes hollow. "Help me, man." Sarah yanked me forward. "That's not him." We stumbled out of the woods as the sun began to rise. The whispers faded. When we reached the car, we collapsed inside, locking the doors. We waited, our breaths shallow, watching the tree line. But nothing followed. Carter and Mia were never found. The town labeled it an unfortunate accident. But I know better. Something in Wyndham Forest wears their faces now. And sometimes, late at night, I hear Carter's voice outside my window. Third story. The Echoes of Wyndham. I had never believed in the legends surrounding Wyndham Forest. People in town whispered about the disappearances, about the twisted thing that lived in the trees, but I always thought it was just small-town superstition. That was before the night we went camping. It was supposed to be a weekend trip, just me, my girlfriend Emily, and our friends Jake and Lauren. We set up camp deep in the forest, miles away from any roads, where the sky was so black you could see every star. The first night was perfect, laughing around the fire, roasting marshmallows, sharing ghost stories. We didn't know the real horror was already watching us. Sometime past midnight, we heard it. A sound like a voice, but wrong. It echoed through the trees, distant and distorted, like someone calling for help, but stretched. Jake grabbed a flashlight. "That sounded like a person," he said, frowning. Emily shook her head. "That wasn't human." Lauren huddled closer to me. "Let's just stay here." Jake ignored her, stepping past the firelight. "Hello?" he called. No answer. He took a few more steps, and the light of his flashlight disappeared between the trees. Then we heard him scream. I grabbed a branch from the fire, its end glowing with embers, and ran toward the sound. Emily and Lauren followed. We found Jake standing there, staring at something in the trees. It looked like a person, but its limbs were too long, its joints bent the wrong way. Its face was pale, hollow, with no eyes, just deep, black sockets. It stood completely still, mouth slightly open, as if tasting the air. Jake took a step back, and the thing moved. Not like a person, but like something learning to be human. Jerking, twitching, its head tilting in short, unnatural angles. It opened its mouth wider, and we heard our own voices come out. "Hello?" It mimicked Jake's voice perfectly. Then my voice. "Is someone there?" Lauren screamed, and that was enough to break the spell. We ran. Branches tore at my arms, my lungs burned, but I didn't stop. Behind us, the thing was moving, fast, too fast. The sound of cracking bones echoed through the forest as it twisted itself, chasing us with inhuman speed. The campsite came into view, but as we reached it, Emily gasped. "The tent," she whispered. It was torn apart, slashed open like something had already been here. The whispers surrounded us then, our own voices, looping over and over. I turned just in time to see Jake get dragged backward into the darkness. His scream cut off suddenly. We had no choice but to run. Lauren was the next to fall. She tripped, and before I could reach her, the thing was on her. I saw its hands, too many fingers, wrap around her neck. Then she was gone. Emily and I kept running. The forest never seemed to end. The whispers grew louder. My own voice whispered into my ear, but Emily wasn't speaking. Then she was gone. I turned, and she was standing there, staring at me. But her eyes were black holes. Her mouth moved, forming my name, but the voice that came out was mine. I backed away, trembling. "Emily?" She smiled. A jagged, wrong smile. I ran. I don't remember how I made it out, just that suddenly I was on the road, headlights blinding me. A driver stopped, pulling me into his car, asking what had happened. I couldn't speak. The next morning, search teams went into the woods. They found our campsite, the torn tent. But no bodies, no tracks leading away, just our voices, still whispering among the trees.